The most luxurious car General Motors ever built didn't show off. It simply disappeared while you were driving it. In the mid-1960s, General Motors had the money, the scale, and the discipline to chase exactly that idea without ever saying it out loud. Instead of building a car that demanded attention, they focused on removing it. The result was the Cadillac Fleetwood 60 Special, a car designed to fade into the background while everything else became easier. Doors closed softly, the body settled without drama. Road noise thinned and then disappeared. Nothing asked for effort, and that was the point. The facts are simple. Introduced for the 1965 model year and refined through 1968, the Fleetwood 60 Special sat on a longer wheelbase than most Cadillacs of the time, prioritizing rear seat comfort and ride isolation. It stretched well past 220 inches overall, with a curb weight that signaled intent, mass used as a tool, not a burden. Period brochures linger on door seals, seat construction, and suspension geometry, details that don't sparkle in ads but matter mile after mile. This was a luxury car designed to reduce noise, vibration, and harshness, not to impress at a stoplight. Why did it exist? Because the market had changed. Post-war wealth matured. Buyers were driving farther more often on expanding highway networks. Executives and professionals didn't want excitement at the end of a long day. They wanted relief. General Motors could afford to chase that goal because it controlled its supply chain and had teams dedicated to refinement rather than novelty. Instead of debuting a gimmick, engineers tuned systems to work together quietly. The goal wasn't speed or spectacle, it was effortlessness. That choice was risky. Luxury without flash is hard to sell. Over-engineering raises cost without creating an obvious talking point. A flaw wouldn't announce itself with a bang. It would show up as fatigue, a hum at speed, a vibration through the seat. And this car would be judged by people who notice those things immediately. On camera, road tests from the era show the Fleetwood cruising at highway speed with the cabin calm enough for conversation, the engine turning lazily, the chassis tracking straight over uneven pavement that unsettles smaller cars. The physical facts explain the feeling. A long wheelbase smooths broken roads. Substantial sound insulation dampens wind and tire noise. Thick glass and heavy doors keep the outside world outside. Seating is upright and supportive for hours, not shaped to look sporty for 5 minutes. Under the hood, Cadillac's big V8 is tuned for low-stress cruising, ample torque delivered without urgency. The car moves because it needs to, not because it wants to. From a rear seat camera angle, the road seems to slow down. Comparisons make the point clearer. Contemporary luxury cars chase style or performance, asking drivers to manage quirks in exchange for image. The Fleetwood asked nothing. It did not demand revs, inputs, or attention. It simply carried you. In training films and service bay photos, accessibility is obvious, systems laid out to be serviced correctly, consistently. Reliability here was not luck, it was the byproduct of restraint. Here is the turn. General Motors aligned weight, suspension tuning, sound isolation, and power delivery not as a brand statement, but as systems engineering. The Fleetwood was meant to disappear while moving. That is why owners trusted it, not because it impressed them, but because it did not interrupt them. Talking about interrupting, help me reach 1,000 subscribers, tap like and subscribe. Let us continue. So, these cars are the machines that made calm feel normal. Once that calm was established, everything else about the Fleetwood 60 Special made sense. The car did not need to announce its quality because the experience did it quietly. On the highway, the long hood pointed forward like a promise that nothing sudden was coming. At a steady cruise, the engine sat in its comfort zone, delivering torque without strain. Period road tests describe the sensation the same way. The car feels unhurried. From exterior footage, you can see it float over expansion joints that jolt lighter sedans. From inside, the sound barely changes. The size that critics sometimes mocked was the key. A long wheelbase spreads bumps out over time instead of letting them hit all at once. Weight used correctly resists twitchy motion. In slow-motion suspension footage, the body settles and stays settled. There is no bobbing, no nervous correction, compared to sport-oriented luxury cars of the same era, which asked drivers to participate constantly. The Fleetwood reduced the workload. You steered less, you braced less, you thought less about the car and more about where you were going. The cabin reinforced that idea. Thick door seals and layered insulation created a quiet zone that didn't depend on speed. Close the door, and outside noise dropped immediately. Wind noise didn't creep in as speeds climbed. Seating was designed for posture and circulation over hours, not for show. In interior shots, the dashboard layout is wide and calm, gauges large and readable, nothing flashing for attention. The car wasn't trying to impress you, it was trying to disappear beneath you. Under the skin, engineering followed the same logic. The big Cadillac V8 wasn't tuned to feel urgent, it was tuned to feel effortless. Power came in smoothly, without spikes, so passengers didn't feel motion changes. Cooling systems were sized generously, allowing the engine to loaf rather than struggle. That reduced noise and heat, and it paid dividends in longevity. Service manuals and dealership training films show an emphasis on consistency. Procedures meant to keep the car feeling the same year after year, not just on day one. Here's the detail that people repeat once they notice it. The Fleetwood didn't make you feel rich, it made you feel rested. Drivers arrived with less tension because nothing in the car demanded constant correction. Passengers could talk without raising their voices. Long trips felt shorter not because the car was fast, but because it removed friction. That's a different definition of luxury, one that doesn't photograph well, but lives in memory. Two facts often get mixed up when this car is discussed. First, people say it was about status. In reality, the people who chose it already had status. They chose calm. Second, people assume bigger meant sloppy. The opposite is true here. Size enabled isolation and stability. The Fleetwood's composure came from physics applied with restraint, not from flashy technology. What this says about the era is simple. Confidence favored effortlessness. Luxury wasn't loud because it didn't need to be, and it says something important about General Motors at its peak. The company was willing to spend money on things you couldn't brag about. Silence, smoothness, trust. Those are hard to sell, but they are impossible to fake. Modern luxury often adds features to prove itself. Screens, modes, alerts, layers of interaction. The Fleetwood took the opposite path. It subtracted. It reduced sensation until the car faded into the background. That's why, decades later, people still remember how it felt rather than how it looked. If this brings back a memory, riding in the back seat, the sound of the door closing, the way the road seemed to quiet, share it in the comments. Give the video a like and subscribe, and thanks for the support.